Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm here with Thorne and Jen, our interpreter. And I wanted to make a video with Thorne. We will be making several videos just to get to know Thorne and have Thorne at the school and all of that. So, hi, Thorne. How was your day?
Hi, my day was pretty good. I finished with some therapy. Now I'm home with the three of you. And then later tonight, I'm going to go out and meet a friend. So my day so far is great. So how's your day been so far?
Oh, thanks for asking. I had a great day. I worked, I did some chart readings and worked on the schedule for classes, so it was good. So let me
Oh.
ask you, how long have you been an astrologer?
So professionally or practicing, which one?
Both.
Okay, so I started practicing reading astrology when I was around, like in my 20s. Professionally, I started with astrology and chart reading, I would say maybe mid early 30s, and I've been doing it since then.
How old are you now?
I'm 46 right now. Recently it was my birthday.
Okay, nice. So you've been professionally reading charts for maybe 10, 15 years?
Yeah, around plus around there.
Okay, so the topic for today, we've been discussing gender at school for a while. So I'm really curious, what do you know already about astrology and gender, or what do you think about that?
Well, actually that's a really good question. So my answer to that, so gender can be found in pretty much any part of your chart. It depends on which like house
Sign.
um and sign, but I would say gender is very fluid. So every human being, all of us have a variation of expressions of their gender, and some maybe it leans more like toward this expression, but other maybe it's more expressive with their gender. Some maybe are in the middle. But it's very like fluid. I have noticed that the fluidity is there. It's not just in a box. Like you can't just put it into a box. Because if you try to apply that kind of thinking to gender, it doesn't really like equate. It doesn't really work at all. So if you allow that space to be there and allow that energy to be where it wants to be, then I think that's a big part of how gender can equate to your chart with astrology.
Okay, those are great points. I mean, I think I want to add to what you're saying and saying that the chart allows a cyclical, fluctuating gender. I think, many of us are trying to smash the binary thinking about gender of like there's masculine and feminine and there's two poles. And I think astrology really smashes that by saying each of us has a circle of gender. There's six signs that are masculine and then six that are feminine, and that in 1 month of the moon's cycle it will hit all of those in 1 month. So we could say all of us have many genders each month. I mean, what do you think of that?
No, that's for sure. I feel like that vibe really does work with the moon because the moon itself is a luminary. So I never really connected well with how binary thinking with the sun and moon. The sun must be masculine, where the moon must be femme. But really, cultures have very many variations where it's opposite, where the sun is very feminine and the moon is very masculine. So it depends on which culture you are discussing, and how that works with the sun and the moon. The moon is cyclical, it goes through cycles. And so that will maybe overlap with that femme energy. But yeah, you're spot on with the masculine, feminine signs and how that really equates with the expressionism and that vibe with that with that secular motion. Yeah, I find that very fascinating. So like when you look at my chart, of course, they overlap. My Cancer moon is very expressive, but soft-hearted, very empathetic, but also has that that firm like attitude, that firm kind of space. It's interesting.
I think you're right. It's like, and we could also say that there's different like kinds of masculine and feminine according to the signs. Like, for example, Gemini could be considered mental masculine, right? Gemini. Whereas Leo would be maybe like heart masculine or something like where so what do you think of that? That each sign has its own kind of masculinity or femininity.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So the whole expressive of gender and how it shows up in that is fascinating for me personally, of course, because I'm Gemini. So I have different like realities with being a Gemini. So I started thinking about that the other day. So for example, Gemini, Pisces, Libra. So those signs allow more fluidity, and you can be more playful with them rather than maybe signs that don't have those two
Dualities.
dualities that are there. So that could be more of a challenge, more of like more of a struggle, and it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just a different path than how like expressiveness happens.
I
So
know
it's
what you're sorry. I know what you're talking about, the double-bodied signs or the mutable signs. So Gemini, Sag, Pisces, and like they're considered in the old text the double-bodied signs. And so it's like there's a duality there where it's like flip-flops. Like for example, they say Gemini is kind of androgynous, or like Valens said, it was feminized yet androgynous, and that's the mutable, the duality of the sign Gemini. You can be like cerebral, which could be like masculine or feminine, it's just cerebral. Or Sag is kind of flippy, like like many like double gendered people are Sag, where they're like I'm both, I'm multiple genders. And so that's the duality of the double bodied sign. So I think you're right. Whereas Aries is like very masculine, where it's just like I'm a man or whatever. Like, is that kind of what you mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then what do you think about the fact that, okay, this is, no, understand, I'm an activist. I'm an activist, okay? Okay, so I'm going to say something that's a little bit inflammatory. I might cause a little fire with that comment. Okay.
Bring it. That's fine. Bring it.
I'm a little concerned sometimes because in today's culture, there's a lot of surgeries involved with, trans people, which is awesome. Like I support that fully for people to be who they want to be, and how they vision themselves. But as an astrologer, sometimes I get concerned because we can sometimes have a chart that's a two-spirit, where part of the chart is very masculine and part of the chart is very feminine. Right. And so then we'll have a transit to like the masculine part, and the person will say, like, I want surgery. But then later a transit will hit the feminine part. And so I get concerned of like, should you have a one-way surgery on a transit when the other part of your chart is the other gender? You know what I mean? I mean, the chart accepts two spirits or three spirits or more than one spirit in a chart. So what do you think of that?
I feel that with surgery and transit, in some ways it could work, yes. Other times I feel that it follows with the surgery, like the natural being. It follows that natural cycle of it's already there. So it already wants to naturally express itself and follow along that way. And so it will align with other parts of that. So like for masculine, it's got very strong, it's got a very strong energy for surgery. But then when it's done and you are healing, maybe that femme part wants to kind of be there as well. So I feel like they align with each other and they eventually balance out. But so I feel that, yeah, I think it definitely will align with itself over time.
Interesting. So I love that point where if like a masculine part of the chart's expressing by transit and you have surgery, then your soul has embodied that masculine part and is showing that. And then
Yeah.
later when the feminine part shows up, then you would add that to the mask with surgery. Like you think
Because I feel the masculine part will want to em emanate with the body and
embody.
or embody the body. So I feel like it will um match with the part that's already there. And so then when the femme part shows up and it overlaps, it was already there. And that's just the natural cycle.
Interesting. So I think that what caused me to start thinking about that is I heard about the term detransitioning. Like so what do you think about that when people detransition? Does that mean that was a mistake to have surgery, or is that just part of the two souls journey of like I surgically go this way and then I go this way? What do you think?
Well, honestly, with that label of detransitioning, it it never really resonated with me. I feel it's more of like a mindset. Their view of how they want to like they're how they're figuring out who they are and how they're resonating with themselves. And so I don't really connect with that word. I don't really resonate with that word at all. And honestly, gender itself is a journey. So even if you do want to go with the flow, that's fine. You don't really need to put a label on it. You don't need to say that it's called detransitioning. It's just who you are as a whole human body, but still just on a different journey, different path. And that's all.
So interesting. You're saying that detransitioning, that term is a cis term. That's
For me, yes, yes, it's a term.
That's so interesting. So it's like that's what one other person said. They said Jay-Z said that they felt like that was the oppressor kind of coming up with that term to say, well, what if you want to detransition or like what if you want to go back? What if? And that's kind of fighting people's right to be able to have surgical alterations. So that's something I'm learning. So thank you for that. That's really interesting to say that's I love what you're saying that it's gender is a journey and that part of the journey might be having a surgery and then having another surgery and then doing whatever you want with surgery again. And like, that's fine. That's a journey. And that if you don't look at it as like right or wrong or this or that, then, and you open your mind, then it's perfect. I mean, is that what you think?
Yes, I feel that it is literally up to the person. It's up to them to decide with their body, their soul, and really have that discussion. Do they accept? Do they agree with what their body is telling them? Is this what they want? They're letting their body decide what they want, and then they'll go ahead with it. It's not up to everyone else to define. And the bottom line is you as a person, your experience, your journey, that's yours, no one else's. And you're right. I do agree that detransition is more of like more of oppressive language. And it is really cis thinking because their perspective is really like their own binary, like their own thinking, their own binary thinking. And then sometimes it's a negative view. And it's not up to them to explain like your experience and your path and your journey.
Beautiful. I love this conversation. So another question is, do you think it's okay to bring up gender in a chart reading?
I would say yes. For the most part, yes. Especially if it's the same kind of community, if you're in the same kind of community. I noticed, like if you're talking to somebody who you're like, okay, I have kind of a rapport with you. But if it's maybe somebody that you don't really know very well, I would say no. There's only one specific time where I would say, if the person doesn't, you don't really know them, or if the person's clearly not comfortable, or like their body language, you can read their body language to say that, or if the person maybe doesn't know, I would maybe hold off. Maybe I would throw out that I noticed something. It seems that this is helpful information. Maybe you're not ready to express it right now. Maybe we can discuss it later. It's a very sensitive subject. So it's the same thing when I'm doing like my tarot cards. If that happens and I am sensing in the cards that maybe they're not ready, maybe I will do like a gentle nudge of, okay, I notice in this card that you're not really ready to explain this, but maybe later we can follow up on this topic.
Nice. One time, I love those thoughts. One time I had a student who wrote a paper, and they said that if the person doesn't ask about gender, then it's not okay to bring it up. But if it's in the inquiry, then you can bring it up. What do you think of that? I like your point. I like your point, though, that if you're in the same community and you have a rapport, then it might be okay to bring it up. Sorry.
Right, right. So if if the person has a specific inquiry, yeah, for sure, definitely, I would agree there. You can bring that up. But if they're not really involved yet or don't really know maybe you can leave it open. Like, so what happens if the person during this conversation, during your discussion, if that person then all of a sudden says like, oh, I noticed this, and this, then that kind of opens up the conversation and you can kind of go into more detail with it. Typically, I go by what I feel is comfortable, what they know about themselves, what they don't know about that. I kind of gauge it that way.
Nice. I think it depends on who the astrologer is too. Like if you're a cis person, maybe you have less leeway to bring up gender than if you're a gender queer person yourself. Maybe it's more comfortable to bring up gender because it's an open conversation, something like that. Well, I wish we had more time, but this is a nice first video with you. Thank you for being willing.
I agree. Thank you so much. Oh, it's always my pleasure. Always my pleasure.
You should think about what next topic you want to discuss with me.
Yes, I will definitely think about that. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right. And thank you, Jen, for interpreting. You did awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. All right. Bye.